Now, the NFL draft is going to have its winners and its losers each year. And we're going to dissect that in a minute. We got some different opinions on who did what. But the Falcons' pick of Michael Penix Jr. continues to steal the show and steal the headlines. And you have pundits on both sides picking it apart. But to me, it's not really complex. In fact, it's pretty simple. Drafting isn't just about getting a really good player. It's about getting the right really good player for your team to be able to compete as fast as possible. Now, by drafting Michael Penix Jr., who in my opinion is going to be a pretty decent player in the NFL, the Falcons failed to meet their needs with their top pick. Now, they could have bolstered their roster with any other pick at that 8th spot outside of quarterback or traded it back to acquire more picks. I think that would have been smarter than taking Penix. But this plan for a distant future is one in which they may not even be a part of if this doesn't work out and it doesn't work out quickly. Now, the worst part about this pick, other than Kirk Cousins not really knowing it was coming, are the strays that Michael Penix is catching. It's not his fault that the Falcons are incompetent. Now, there's a saying that if you're having to explain, then you are losing. Shout out to Ronald Reagan. And not only did the Falcons GM have to give a thesis to Arthur Blank instantly right after the pick, you could see that on your screen, but the defenders of this pick, Todd McShay and others, are having to do mental gymnastics that would make Livy Dunn blush to try and make this make sense. Now, the logical response is the Falcons fumbled the bag. Just the truth. And I feel bad for the fan base. If you wanted Penix, don't give Kirk Cousins that contract. If you believe in Kirk Cousins for 3 years or more, don't draft Michael Penix Jr. in the 8th pick. It's that simple. Something else that's pretty simple is how much I love David Cohn.
I love you.
Former Michigan quarterback. And he's sitting here on my left. And my brother, who by law I have to love, but I do anyways. Blaine Crane, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver. Guys, David first, Falcons pick, something we talked about right when it happened. By the way, shout out to everybody that hopped on the live stream for the first round of the NFL draft. That was a hell of a setup. Y'all really showed up, showed out. We really appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button and shout out to production and everybody for setting that up. But David, I just don't get it.
One of the funny things I thought was that Bill Belichick was in the running for that head coaching job in Atlanta, and they're like, nah, we actually don't want Bill Belichick. And then they go and they make the most newsworthy pick in a negative way by selecting Michael Penix Jr. at 8. All things considered, though, I don't think the Falcons had the worst draft because take this, for instance. I mean, now you have 2 quarterbacks, I believe, that can go in and be the starting quarterback and play really well and win that division right now for Atlanta, maybe one of the weakest divisions in football. They have 2 quarterbacks, I think, who can do that when they haven't had one the last couple years. That's a better position to be in. It's just really weird to give that much money to Kirk Cousins. One thing is a lot of that money is front-loaded, okay? So by halfway through the bye week next year, if you want to move off Kirk Cousins, you can do that. One of the things that's interesting, though, is the rookie contracts on quarterbacks is why you're going to get so many of these guys to free up money elsewhere. The best example is Brock Purdy with the 49ers. You have a starting quarterback on a rookie deal that allows you to have all these amazing pieces and pay them. But he's not the only one. There are other examples.
It's also the last pick of the draft.
Last pick of the draft, but it doesn't matter where you get him if you're still paying. I mean, yeah, granted, you'll pay the 8th pick overall more money than you would pay Mr. Irrelevant, but still, these rookie contracts for quarterbacks are not what they used to be 14 years ago before the CBA was corrected, right? So the point still remains, you could have taken that $100 million guaranteed you're giving Kirk Cousins and spread it out elsewhere. And I think that just shows you, like, some of these teams that draft really well year in and year out, the general managers, like if you look at Howie Roseman with the Eagles, like that's what he's thinking about all year, right? He's not getting caught up at the 8th pick like, oh, well, this guy just randomly fell to us, we should take him. There's strategy that's put throughout the entire year with these sorts of picks. But with that being said, I do think the Falcons have 2 players now who can go in and win the division, I mean.
Well, and listen, again, I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to be good eventually, but who's going to tackle anybody? Who's going to block anybody? Mm-hmm. Like this, if it was 7-on-7, great pick. But it's not 7-on-7. You may be able to sneak around and somewhat compete in that division, but when I look at Bijan Robinson, when I look at Drake London, when I see some of the young pieces on that defense that you could have added at that 8th pick has tremendous value. You could have got an offensive lineman. You could have got a linebacker. Hell, there wasn't a defensive guy taken off the board until the 15th pick. So it's not just about who you pick, it's where you pick them. I think they'd have been smarter instead of taking Penix to trade that pick back to acquire more picks to bolster that roster. Brock Purdy, yeah, it makes sense to me. He was the last pick of the draft. If Michael Penix would have fallen to the second round, or you wanted to move up to get him after that 8th pick, okay, that would have made more sense to me. I just feel like you had a chance to bolster your roster with Dallas Turner wasn't taken yet. Yep. Latu wasn't taken yet. You had offensive linemen on the board that could have helped you out instantly, interior and exterior. I think they fumbled the bag.
Yeah, there's nothing about this that makes sense. If you're going to do this, why sign Kirk Cousins to a $100 million contract, which I think it's way too much anyways, but you're one of the worst teams in pass rushing in the league. You're one of the worst teams on defense when it comes to tackling.
Look at linebacker
space in the league. You're not great up front. So if there's a way for me to understand, and this is a different situation than the Jordan Love situation, the Packers. Like Michael Penix is about to come in here and sit to 2 to 3 years. He won't be your starting quarterback till the kid's 26 or 27 years old.
I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, that's another weird thing.
Well, that's even worse because you just paid Kirk Cousins $100 million.
Yeah, that's the side of it that would almost even worry me more. I mean, think about this. Kirk Cousins is not going to be ready for OTAs. So who's going to be throwing the football to all these young kids before fall camp starts?
What about the quarterback you drafted in the first round last year? Is that Desmond Ridder?
I mean, first of all, you upgraded tremendously.
Yeah. You drafted me.
But if Michael Penix Jr. is throwing the ball to all these young skill position players that you have throughout OTAs, then all of a sudden Kirk Cousins is back by fall camp. I mean, everybody around the league understands Kirk Cousins is a really good and confident quarterback, but we're not talking about Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or somebody who's built up the playoff equity and Super Bowl equity.
It just seems like you drafted like a team that had a loaded roster. That's what it seemed like to me. Now, some people were making the comparison to the Chiefs drafting Patrick Mahomes when they had Alex Smith. Let me read you the Chiefs starting lineup real quick that year. This is 2017. Alex Smith, Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill, Demarcus Robinson, Albert Wilson, Travis Kelce, Eric Fisher, Brian Witzman, Zach Fulton, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, Mitchell Schwartz. You had 2 bookend tackles. That's on offense. Defense, Chris Jones, Benny Logan, Alan Bailey, Justin Houston, Reggie Ragland, Derek Johnson, Frank Zombo is a pretty good player, Marcus Peters, Terrence Mitchell, Ron Parker. That ain't even close. That roster just supersedes the Falcons by leaps and bounds. And that's something that, again, has been talked about. That horse has been beat to death, but it's something we had to bring up. But let's go to some other teams. Let's go to our winners. I thought the Arizona Cardinals had a really good draft.
They drafted really
I thought they absolutely killed it. They did the smart thing. Sometimes just doing the smart, obvious thing is the best way to go about it. You get Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think was the best wide receiver in what was an absolutely loaded wide receiver draft. Everybody talked about the quarterback, so wide receiver position was absolutely loaded, right? You get Trey Benson.
Yeah, they did.
Which I thought was a great pick. Darius Robinson from Missouri, a guy that we saw in person down at the Senior Bowl that is an absolute monster. And I thought they were pretty complete throughout the whole draft. So kudos. You gave credit to the new GM for the Cardinals.
Man.
Ossenfort did a hell of a job.
Disciple.
And then Sean McVay and the Rams.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald retires. You get Jared Verse, who I think is going to be the best pass rusher out of this whole group. You get Braden Fisk. Remember, both of them played at Florida State. Braden Fisk, another guy at the Senior Bowl, won defensive MVP, who you talk about a pass rush threat from the interior and also a guy that can be a stump and stop the run. You get Blake Corum, Cam Kinchins, the DB from Miami, who's a really good player. So those are 2 teams. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Outside of And I thought the Vikings reached a little bit for J.J. McCarthy. I know a lot of people had him rated high, but the move they made to go get Dallas Turner I thought was smart to put him next to Danielle Hunter. But I thought most teams drafted pretty well in this.
I agree with that.
I thought it was outside of that one pick, a pretty well thought out. You had your trades. It was obviously offense heavy. I mean, we have never seen offensive play. It shows you how the game's changed, and I know drafts are cyclical. But, David, who did you have?
I agree completely with both of those teams. And when you look at the Rams, Sean McVay, an offensive-minded guy, someone who's really trying to win right now, right? Like, we don't know how long Sean McVay is going to be the head coach of the Rams. And someone who got Cooper Kupp to be a Triple Crown winner just a couple seasons ago. You get Puka Nacua last year to break all-time rookie records because you're scheming guys open so well. and Aaron Donald, one of the best defensive players we've ever seen, retires, what does Sean McVay and the Rams do? They go get half of Florida State starting defensive line, who went undefeated. And then, Blake Corum, your third overall pick from Michigan. Is this guy going to be like an Adrian Peterson in the NFL? No, but he's the heart and soul of one of the best college football programs that we've seen over the past 3 years. I think he fits in completely with what the Rams want to do. Look, we always have to talk about the Eagles just because they're just so strategic in everything they do. What was their weakness going into the offseason?
TV.
I mean,
the secondary. We talked about it all season, how the Eagles, what's going on in the secondary. They get Quinyon Mitchell with their first pick, who I think you tapped as the best corner in this class,
Without a doubt. Another guy we saw down in
You follow it up with Cooper DeJean with your second pick, who many had a first-round grade on. So you're getting two of the best corners in this draft, and then immediately edge. They get Will Shipley out of Clemson. They get Anaya Smith out of Texas A&M. They go linebacker, offensive guard, wide receiver, offensive guard, just like everything the Eagles are doing. And meanwhile, on the other side of that, in that division, you have the Giants and the Cowboys, where I just have a lot of questions. I mean, the Giants, 0 linemen in this draft. 0 on the offensive or defensive side. So they go wide receiver, safety, cornerback, tight end, running back, and linebacker. I mean, we all like Malik Neighbors, but is that the best way to win? No quarterback?
Malik Neighbors was the obvious pick. That was a good choice. I like what the Cowboys did. I think the Cowboys had a pretty good draft, but the Giants, any draft where you don't take a lineman, when you have as many picks as the Giants did, it's almost like in a recruiting cycle, not taking a high school offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know you have Evan Neal. I know there's some pieces in place. I get some of the picks that they made, but I'm with David. I mean, anytime you don't take a lineman in the draft, you better be right.
People need to realize if you're a fan of an NFL team and you feel like you had a boring draft, most of the time that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. It's not super flashy. Lineman this, lineman that. That's what I go for. At least a couple teams that I got really interested to see. I think the Saints did a really good job yesterday.
They stole Spencer Rattler.
Kool-Aid. You got Kool-Aid, who's been projected first round the entire draft. You got him late, and I think it's a win. But one team kind of interesting, I'm really like what the Colts did.
Yeah.
Right now, if you go through, I know a lot of it's going to depend on the health of the quarterback. I know, but you get Latu at the 15, which you needed. You have another guy of that edge who's going to be pretty damn good. You get Adonai Mitchell, who's a first round, in my opinion. Right now, it's Anthony Richardson Jr., Jonathan Taylor, Alex Pierce, Adonai Mitchell. You go get Anthony Gold from Oregon State, who you know who he is. Smaller guy, speed guy, going to be a straight line guy, deep threat, also can help you in special teams. They're slowly building something in Indianapolis, and they're fitting to a mold. That's what I always look for when it comes to a draft. What is the team's identity, and who are they drafting to be? You pair Adonai Mitchell with Michael Pittman Jr., Joshua Downs from North Carolina, Adonai Mitchell, Jonathan Taylor, one of the best backs in the league. You get 3 linemen, and 2 of the linemen who are still, in my opinion, offensive tackle from Pitt, who's going to be a dog. I really like what the Colts ended up adding.
And they're young.
Young talent.
There's some older guys on that team, but they're young. Kind of the skill sets diversified. I know some people were giving the Raiders some hell for taking Brock Bowers. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Especially if the quarterback you wanted didn't land.
That's exactly right. You took a guy. I don't think they thought Brock was going to be there. I think they thought the Jets were going to take Brock at 10. Now, when I look, you say, oh, you drafted Michael Mayer the year before. Yeah, having two, go ask any defensive coordinator out there, when you have 2 versatile tight ends, because remember, Brock Bowers isn't a guy that you're just going to line up in the hip and you're just going to go have him bang his head against the wall, in the front 7 the whole game. He's a guy you can split out. Michael Mayer, you can split him out, yeah, but I think he's a little bit more of that old school tight end. So you got 2 kind of different players, but 12 personnel with the Raiders, with Devontae Adams out there, it's a problem.
Which is what Georgia was running.
And you didn't reach for a quarterback. Like, you didn't say, you know what, well, our guy isn't here. We're just going to go try and pull one out of our ass and see if it works out. I thought you showed good patience. And again, I believe in Aiden O'Connell down the stretch, if we're going to be honest.
I kind of do too.
And David, I'm going to get to the Booster Club, but before we move on, out of the top 3 quarterbacks that were taken, because I thought the Bears had a good draft. I thought the Bears had a really good draft. You knew Caleb was going 1. Jaden goes 2 to Washington. Drake goes 2 to the Patriots. The Patriots, solid. They were kind of building from the ground up. Obviously,
they drafted Joe Milton the third.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, look, to me, that can't be in the winning category if you watch Joe Milton through his entire career and then you drafted him late.
But thank God you got Drake May.
Yeah, I mean, thank God. But man, I don't understand. And I like Joe Milton. right? I mean, he's a Pahokee kid. He went to the University of Michigan. I was pulling for him his entire career. I don't know how you watched the tape and thought, we're going to draft this guy, unless it's just you want him to get off the bus first.
Yeah.
So you can instill fear in him.
Well, listen, I can like you and still not want you to babysit my kids. I mean, those things can be, both those things can be true at once.
But the Bears, the Chicago Bears are about to run out an entirely different team than they did a season ago. I mean, they're going to be a problem. Now, they won 7 games a year ago. They may not win a whole lot more games than they did a year ago, but I think they're still going to be better off. Mostly I say that because that division may end up being the best in football, especially on the offensive side of the ball. When you start talking about what the Lions are bringing back, the Packers, the Vikings could finish 4th in that division with all of the talent they had, which is really wild. So that was one other thing I wanted to highlight. We were talking about the zero linemen on either side of the ball for the Giants. The Cowboys, like you talked about, they did just the opposite, which is great. Only one skill player, a wide receiver in the 6th round. My question on that more was, what does that mean for the Dak extension or the Dak re-signing? Like, what are you really trying to do with Dak Prescott? Are the Cowboys trying to move off of him? Does Jerry want to re-sign him? Also, the Panthers, only one lineman, a defensive tackle taken in the 6th round. I'm not sure what the Panthers are thinking there, but some other winners for me. Chargers, Harbaugh came out and said, when asked, why aren't you taking skill players early, he said linemen are skill positions to us.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you need to know about what the Chargers. Bills, Bengals, Browns, and Jags, I thought also all really drafted well. I mean, the Bills were moving back twice, and we were like, well, it must be because they really think the wide receiver they want is going to be there. Oh, well, he was. First pick of the second draft, Keon Coleman, who I think is going to be an absolute star.
and had a really funny press conference if you didn't watch it.
You can get that jacket at Macy's.
Yeah,
Every color.
Without a doubt. All right, going to get to the Booster Club in a second. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get over to the Booster Club.
Booster Club, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you donate, it's on topic. It will get read. Get those feet chopping for this Monday. We're going to start off with George Reuter. Hello, George. Hashtag Ask Cranico. Why do my New York Jets need not 1, but 2 quarterbacks coming back from significant injury? By the way, New York City pizza will ruin you for any other kind. Deep dish pizza is a yummy casserole.
Look, I'm not going to argue it's a yummy casserole. It's just my favorite type of pizza that may happen to be in casserole form. Somebody's like, oh, it's just cheesy bread with tomato sauce on it. I was like, well, that sounds pretty amazing to me. Look, when it comes to the Jets, I like the position the Jets are in. If we're going to sit here and talk about quarterbacks coming off injuries, let's talk about Michael Penix. Let's talk about basically half the quarterbacks in the league. No, if I was a Jets fan, I would not be upset at the way the draft went. I thought they made some good moves. I'm looking forward to, Aaron being healthy with what he's going to have around him, man. It's going to be off the end.
I really like the pick because I think about if this guy doesn't get hurt and he goes and wins that game, and we're talking Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
And he goes and wins a certain game, wins a playoff, and goes lose the national championship game. Who knows where Jordan got picked in the grand scheme of things? So him with that injury, I mean, I don't think it's a bad pick at all for New York.
No, I kind of like it too. And you got Braylon. So they got Jordan Travis in the 5th round. Braylon Allen, one of the best running backs a season ago from Wisconsin. To me, the Jets did the definition of buying low and hoping they can either sell high or these guys become franchise players. And plus, you did that in the 4th and 5th round. I mean, first of all, you went offensive tackle at the beginning, which we already said, hey, that's the right play.
Smart.
It's not the sexy play. You went offensive tackle. I think, did they get the 2nd or 3rd offensive lineman in the draft? So you're getting the pick of the litter at that point. They go wide receiver Malachi Corley in the 3rd round.
Who I like.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I wasn't that familiar with him, but you had talked highly of him. Then you go Braylon Allen and Jordan Travis. I don't know. I think that
You didn't screw it up.
Like if Jordan Travis, if you end up hitting on that and you got him in the 5th round, that's
Look,
a
I'm
great
a Jordan
get.
Travis believer. I thought he made one of the biggest jumps from a passing development standpoint over the past 2 years of his career than any quarterback.
All right, let's go to a $2 donation from DV. What's up, bro? He said, who should be more worried, Cousins or Penix?
Well, I mean, if you're Kirk, your money's guaranteed. I'm not. I just, again, and I want to make sure that people understand what I'm saying. I like Michael Penix Jr. This has nothing to do with my thought of Michael Penix Jr. being a good quarterback eventually in the NFL. But I feel like you either got to pick one or the other. Either it's going to be a Febreze Brothers fresh start in Atlanta with Michael Penix and Bijan and Drake and Kyle and these other guys, or Kirk Cousins is your guy. you go and get a journeyman backup quarterback like we've seen a ton of NFL teams do that can come in, whether it's, a guy like Chad Henne or somebody that did what he did for the Chiefs. You look around the league, there's some backups that can come in that you don't have to drop the bag on. Michael Penix is also, after the 3-year Kirk Cousins deal, if it works out perfect for Atlanta, where Kirk Cousins has a great 3 years and rides off into sunset, Michael Penix Jr. is 27 years old, like by the time that contract ends. So there's just a bunch of factors.
It's 4 years, actually.
Yeah, 4 years. So 28 years old by the time that contract ends. I just, again, it doesn't fit into the jigsaw puzzle of what the Falcons could or should have done, in my opinion. So as far as worried, if I'm Michael Penix Jr., hell, I just got a rookie contract and y'all don't expect me to really do that much for at least 3 to 4 years. And if Kirk Cousins does get hurt, you're throwing me in the fire. What are you going to do, cut me for having a up and down rookie season like every quarterback ever? Like, I don't know, Peyton Manning or some of these other guys. I think Michael Penix Jr. at the end of the day, I don't think he's crying.
It was the perfect type scenario that we talked about for J.J. McCarthy, not Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, that's exactly
help
right.
teams. But yeah, Kirk's deal, 4 years, $180 million. Again, so much of it is front loaded though. Kirk Cousins isn't going to be the quarterback for the Falcons in 4 years. Like, I just don't see it happening. I think Raheem Morris was 21-38, something like that, as head coaching record previously. I think he looked around and said, well, I couldn't get the quarterback position right. I'm not going to let that happen again. He went over, he was the DC for Sean McVay and the Rams, right? Sean McVay moved off Jared Goff. Jared Goff, who led the Rams to the Super Bowl, who's taken Detroit to the NFC Championship game, even he said, no, I want to get even better at that position. Let's get Matt Stafford. And when he got injured, what were the Rams left with a couple seasons ago? Bare minimum season. Yeah, terrible season. So I think Raheem Morris is like, look, I can figure out the rest of the pieces on the team. And not that he had the ultimate say, he's not the general manager, but I think he was in there saying, just give me as many options at quarterback as possible. Let's see if one hits and we can figure out the rest.
Well, I just watching the video of Fontenot, the GM for the Falcons, having to explain instantly right after the pick. It was like the part on draft day with Kevin Costner when the owner comes in and he's like, USOB, and Kevin Costner's like, just wait before you fire me. Let me watch this. It was like all that happened except it didn't end good.
Just wait 3 years before you fire me.
Yeah, wait 3 years before you fire me and then we'll talk about it.
Wait till Kirk's deal's done.
Yeah, genius.
I was going to G Frank 9772 says Dallas just brought back Zeke. They want to try and bring back the 2014 band together.
Yeah,
What's
I saw that.
your thought behind a revamped offensive line?
I think that was the right move.
To bring Zeke back?
Well, not Zeke. I think you're not going to get much from him. I think you're going to get more from Dowdle than you're going to get from Zeke. But at the end of the day, you know how you get more out of all of them? You block somebody.
Yeah.
And we know the Cowboys, say what you want about Dallas, and believe me, we have, and Dak. And I know they've been beat up every now and then on the offensive line. You look at Zach, you look at Tyrus, all those guys. I think they want to rebuild the Great Wall of China. That's what they're trying to do. And I will never fault a team for getting better up front. Now, it doesn't mean that any pick you make is going to make you better, but I thought the guys that they took, where they took them, made a lot of sense. I thought it was a very down-to-earth draft for the Cowboys, which you don't typically say with Jerry Jones.
Talk about getting better up front. Bengals go Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia.
May end up being the best one at all.
348, something like that in the first round. Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle out of Michigan in the second round. They take Jermaine Burton at wide receiver from Alabama in the third round, then immediately get McKinley Jackson from Texas A&M, the defensive tackle. So 3 of the first 4 picks for the Bengals are up front, and your 4th pick was Jermaine Burton from Alabama.
Yeah, one of these things is not like the other. Which, look, Jermaine, do I think Jermaine's going to have a stellar NFL career? No, but when you're surrounded by the guys he's surrounded by on the outside, we'll see what happens with Higgins.
You didn't need the guy.
Yeah, you didn't need to go get some
piece.
Wide receiver 1. You needed a guy that can come in there and fit. So I do agree with that. What's up, YouTube? Hey, do us a favor. Appreciate you stopping by. Hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on, and hit the like button on videos that you like. We appreciate it.